Hi, and welcome to Unconditional Videocast, brought to you by realestate.co.nz. This month we wanted to do a special insight into the Canterbury marketplace. Clearly, over the last 6 or 7 months since the first earthquake in September, and obviously as a function of the recent earthquake in February, there's been a lot of uncertainty and concern as to the way that the region is going to recover. Obviously, initial concerns are to the people, but it's relevant, I think, to examine in detail a little bit more about the property market in the area. It's a big region. It's the second biggest region in the country, only after Auckland, and represents around 15% of the property transactions and activity in the country. So it's an important market, and it was very noticeable in the impact of the September quake, how that had a first stage effect on the property market, creating uncertainty, establishing a question mark about the structural integrity of property and where things were going to be established and built in the future. Obviously, following that and the February quake, more issues have arisen immediately in the Christchurch CBD and the eastern suburbs. So providing a little bit of insight into some of the key numbers as we see them from the website hopefully helps to share for the industry and the consumers in this sector an insight into what may happen in the future. So the first issue to look at is really the property sales side of the market. Now, we report on the NZ Property Report each month, the Canterbury region. Now, that is a wide region, not only including Christchurch City, but stretching from the north of Hamner Springs right down to Ashburton and beyond in the south. So a wide area. What we've seen as the number of new listings have come onto the market over the last 7 months, Canterbury has seen a decline. The initial decline in September was of the order of 26%, not surprisingly, given uncertainty about the ability of property to be transacted. The effect of February was significant as well. It had a drop in listings coming onto the market in March. There were 1,297 new listings coming on, which, when you step back for a moment, is quite surprising. It would have expected to have been around 1,800 if this had been a normal situation. So we anticipate, or we extrapolate, that around 480 properties were not listed in the Canterbury region in March, as would have been compared to a normal time. But still, 1,297 is a significant amount of business. The industry is there doing business, talking to people, helping people, advising people right across that region. So from a sales point of view, there are a significant number of properties on the market, and they're being actively marketed and presented on the website and through the companies operating in the region. So the effect there has not been quite so extensive or significant as we might have imagined. Clearly within the region, in individual suburbs, there are impacts that have been more significant, and those have been well documented in the news. The other key statistic we can look at uniquely from the website is the degree with which the viewing public are looking at property in the region. Now, that is broken down to say who was looking at Canterbury property on a particular day, week or month. And it is so telling that as soon as an event of this nature happens, as it did in September, then again in February, clearly the level of interest declines massively, be it in September when average daily viewings of listings in the Canterbury region fell from around 3,600 down to 2,000. So they almost halved instantaneously. That is no surprise because clearly other things are more important. The fall in February was more significant. It dropped well below 2,000. And the factor of that is that we saw less interest in looking at property in that region. Now, it has established a stable base, particularly after the September quake, and people are looking more actively. Prior to the February quake, we picked up to about 2,300 daily visitors, so there was a ready, steady audience looking and interested in property. Since the February quake, we have seen a lower level, tucking below 2,000, but still 2,000 people a day are actively searching on realestate.co to find property in that region and find interesting opportunities or potential property that they wish to move to within the region. One other insight into that is our ability to look and see were there any factors within that audience, say from international viewers. The only significant variance we found was, compared to a year ago, there was an increased proportion of Australians looking. That is to say that of those who were looking, there were 15% of them in March of this year Australians looking for property in the region compared to 12% last year. So the representation had grown despite the fact that in total numbers, the number of viewings had declined. So that's looking at the kind of picture of property on the market from a sale perspective. The other insight from the website is to look particularly at the rental sector. Now, we hold about 6,000 listings across the country from licensed property managers who are marketing rental property for tenants. We don't have on the site any listings from private landlords, so ours is focused on the property management market. Now, the interesting insight there is the degree with which the availability of property has declined quite considerably since the February earthquake. Taking just the Christchurch city, there's been a steady and incremental decline of about 30% in the amount of available property on the market. It's dropped from around 700 down to the 400 range, a significant decline. Now, that is clearly a function of potentially the uptake of demand created as people have had to move out of their existing home and find alternative homes. But also speaking to the industry in that area, they've cited the situation where clearly tenanted property has become itself uninhabitable, which has removed it from the market. Those factors are certainly preying on the market from a pressure point of demand, and it's a question of whether there is sufficient supply to meet those demands. And that's where we also look at the amount of people viewing rental property. This is a more complex picture, and what we saw is there was a natural decline immediately after each of the earthquakes, but both followed a period when demand picked up, and that demand was of the order of 2 or 3 weeks where there was significantly more activity as people were looking, and then it sort of tailed off. It's interesting, though, that in the post-February quake through March, we saw quite an incredible increase, a spike of activity. Clearly, people were very keen and very needing to find property. So it's clearly a situation where the supply side in the property market, as far as rental property is concerned, is a concern. To find that low level in that region is a concern. As far as the sale market, there is property on the market, quite a considerable amount. The asking price expectation of property for sale in the Canterbury region has not moved much over the last couple of months and very much mirrors the national picture. So as yet, we have not seen any impact coming through of distressed or affected property in terms of structure to affect the price. And there is still, as I say, a strong level of inventory. Nationally, the picture still shows a high level, and Canterbury equally shows a high level. So in some ways, it's incredible the resilience and the determination of that region to carry on. And I give credit to the industry in that area. There is over 1,400 people who work in the real estate industry in that region, and they are picking up and getting back to work, finding new offices, getting themselves established, and providing a support to the industry. We're pleased to support that industry, and we wish them well for the future. All the details of what I've covered in this brief video cast are available on the Unconditional website. We've posted a special report on the Christchurch market, and all the data I've talked about is presented in charts, which are available for you to see in detail. So that's all for the Canterbury region's special report. Thank you very much for joining us and watching this. Join us again for future reports on the Unconditional videocast on YouTube. Thank you.